Welcome back to our next video, still doing small miniatures. This time I'm going to do a small lidded box, but the thing about this one is the lid is threaded, so I'm going to have to thread the inside of this, and I'm going to have to thread the top of the box. Well, this is easily doable with taps and dies, right? Well, not so. The problem is that if I use a die to cut the external male threads, it just tears the heck out of the wood. But I can use the tap to do the interior thread in this wood, and I'm using what's called brown ebony. And it's really, really hard, and it's going to hold the internal threads very nicely. And so I'm going to be able to use a tap wrench to actually cut those internal threads. But I can't use its matching die for the external threads, so I'm going to have to hand chase them. Well, I have a thread chaser that is 16 TPI, and that works just great because if I drill and tap a 3/8 16 hole here and tap and thread it, I can hand chase the threads on the lid. So this is the body. This little piece of kind of porous wood is going to be our lid, but it's a nice contrast. So that's what we're going to do today. And then I have a problem. I have to turn this thing around somehow and do the bottom. So I'm going to take you through all those steps. Now, a few months ago I did another piece very similar to that. This is done out of acrylic, threaded lid, exactly the same. Well, I'm not dealing with acrylic today, but we will do a piece in acrylic so we can show you how to get that nice clear finish inside and out in one of the future ones. So right now, brown ebony and a stopper made out of this material. I think it's zebra wood, zerbano, or whatever you want to call it, and that's what we're going to use for the stopper. Tool-wise, I got the same miniature tools I had last time. I have a few other tools that I have modified. Now, this is my miniature McNaughton hollower set. This one is the straight one, and it may work in that hole. I like the bent one, but the back was way too thick, so I ground a lot of metal off the back of this. So I'm going to try it and see if it works. I had made a series of carbide cutters a long time ago, and I just ground the shaft down on this. I know the cutter is almost invisible, it's really small, but it's almost too big. So this is in a custom handle, and this is in another custom handle. And here is a scraper I dug out of my drawer. It's an old Sorby. It says Sorby Sheffield, and that's old marking. They don't mark them that way anymore. So I took it and ground it into a customized curve to see how that works inside. So a lot of this is going to be a little bit of experimenting because this wood is so hard, it doesn't hollow very well, but I can tap it. So we're going to have fun playing and seeing what happens, and hopefully I'll be able to create another one of these today. I've got my sharpening. This is not the card I carry in my pocket, but for these smaller tools, for some reason, this seems to be easier to manipulate around these little tiny ones. So I've got that at hand because we're going to have to do some more of that. So let's rough this out, get it going. I'm going to set these tools aside. Not too far because I'm going to have to get back to them. And I think we'll use our bowl gouge here to initially start, shape this outside, then we'll drill and tap the hole. And the difficulty is going to be hollowing out the inside without touching that edge, because that has to be a perfectly straight edge so that I can then cut threads in it at the right point in time. Get my thread chaser aside, and we're ready to go. Speed's down to 0. Zip up and I'm ready to go. cylinder. So now, shape. Okay, that's a rough shape. A little bit of refining, but not much. The base is going to have to come in a little bit, but I'll worry about that later. This end is not flat. I want that flat so my drill will go where I want it to go. Good enough for now. Okay. Drill bit. All taps have a matching drill bit, so that you drill the hole slightly smaller than what the tap requires, and there's a matching set, and you can always look that up. I have a set where the drill and the taps are all together. So let's put a hole in this thing. Now I want to go about there. Getting it started is the important thing. Now at this point it'll go fine. And I'm now going to determine how deep I want that to go. So about to where my finger is. So there's my mark. Clearing it from time to time. Maybe one more plunge and we've got it. Just check and see how deep we are. We're down to right about there. And that'll be fine, because this will come in. That'll be the base. And we have a straight hole in here, and I want to protect this first 1/8 of an inch, because that's what the thread's going to go. So let's get this out of the way, because I'll run into it otherwise. I'm trying to determine which hollowing tool might be the best one to start with. Let's try this one. This is trial. You get the tools you have, and you see which ones work best. Remember, this is end grain hollowing. We want to work from the center out. This tool is almost too big, but I might be able to get some mass out of here with it. Let's get as close as we can. I've checked height on this thing a couple of times just to be sure. Oh yeah, it's working. But even the straight tool is wanting to be pulled over and twisted. So I've got a handle that has some knurling on it, which gives me a good grip. Well, that worked okay. Let's see what else we can do. I'm going to go under the shoulder. Here's another one of the McNaughton tools that I had pulled the corner back on. Yeah, that's working pretty good. I want to get back up underneath his shoulder, this is the thing. Bent tools and small holes, very careful extract. So I need something straight. This was a modified Sarby scraper, small enough to fit the hole, but way too low. Thinner tool. Looks better. Seems to work pretty good. Let's clear the chips. Okay, I'm going to stay with the same tool, I think, for a while. Hollowing back underneath that shoulder is the same place where the chips want to pack, thus lifting my tool right off the surface. Let's get some of the chips out of there. It's a standard hollowing job, it's just small. And I'm going somewhat slow. I don't want to go too fast. I want this to be torqued around in my hand and jerked out. Under the shoulder. Bottom. Carefully out of the hole. Clean some chips if I can. Need a smaller tool than this one. Okay, one more time under the shoulder, and then we'll call it time to move to step 2. Amazing, this tool works better than anything, and it's a modified scraper. Let's clean it up. And I'm going to do the threading now before I do anything else. Set those aside. And the way I thread, I want to be sure I go on straight. So I'm going to use what's called a tap follower. And it's a device that fits in the tailstock. And it's spring-loaded. What that does is just keep the tap running straight and true. So here's my 3/16 18 tap. Has a hole in the end that sets on this tap follower, and then keep it aligned perfectly. So let's start it here. And I don't need any pressure, and I'm certainly not going to run the lathe. This is all going to be done by hand. And since it's opened out inside, I don't have very far to go. I'm clear all the way through now. And the tap followers kept me lined. Back it out. And I'm going to run it one more time just to clear out any accumulated sawdust. See, I'm not even locking the tailstock. And now it's not cutting the threads, it's just cleaning them up. That's a nice looking thread. You can't see down in there, but it's cleanly cut. And this is fine for doing very hard woods. Tapping the dies for cutting the external, as I told you, just don't work too good. Put that away. Bring my tap follower out. I don't need the tailstock anymore. So now, with my spindle and bowl gouge, I'm going to finish the shape, and we're going to part this off. Now we've got to do the bottom yet, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And that's just a little low for these tools. Okay, bowl gouge first, clearing the chuck. Yeah. Scraping. I'm just roughly cleaning up the shape. And I'm going to part it off right about there. And I'm going to put the parting cut in, not to cut it yet. Mostly just to define where the bottom is. Now I can see that I'd like to take this in just a bit more. Yeah, that's a better shape, I think. So now it's a matter of sanding it, finishing it. So 600, 180. Looking for my 200 and 400. There's my 400. It's my 220. And the 180 is going to be my final shaping. Now this is an ebony, so it's not going to take a finish really well, so I'm just going to polish it. A little wax, a little polish. And at 180, we're still removing the tool marks. Let's see how we did. Looks pretty good, except right at the bottom. It's always hard to get that little bottom edge. Okay, 180, 220. Always keep your paper moving. And I've got some 400. And that's picking up a shine just from getting to finer grits. Here with the lights and the classroom, I can see that. So the 600. That's not bad looking right there, but I have one more, and I always finish off with my steel wool. And there's a shine just from that. I could call that done, but I like to use this Triple E Ultra Shine, which is a mixture of very fine abrasive with a little bit of a wax. So there's my wax coating. Same time I'm doing a little bit final polish. And by rubbing this back and forth, well, that's rubbed it in. And now I need to rub that off. Just a clean piece of paper towel. Take off the excess. These blue shop towels are the ones I prefer because they have such a soft surface to them. And they're better than standard paper towels. Okay, there's the vessel, except it's still on the machine, so we got to get it off of there and finish that bottom. Let's take this, set it aside. That's a pretty wood. So we're going to part it off as neatly as we can, and then I'll show you how we finish the bottom. It's one of my modified hacksaw blade tools. Little tool, but overlapping cuts. Down to less than 8. And here it comes. So I have a little bottom here that needs to be cleaned up. And some stuff inside. So there's our piece, so to speak. We got to work on it. So let me take this scrap wood out. And I've already had another piece of scrap wood which I have turned a thread on. And because this is threaded, I'm going to screw my box onto it. And it's not running perfectly true, but that's okay for what I need to do. I just need to work on this bottom. So I'm back to my sanding papers. I'm going to use the tool rest just to rest my hand on so I can find that little bottom. Now I can polish that little bump off, but that's going to take too long. Take a tool. There we go. 180 on the bottom. Now, since this is the center of rotation, the wood literally is not moving very fast. So it takes a little longer time. Now 220. $400. I lost my diamond point tool. Got to mark that bottom. Put a couple little lines on there just to show that we actually did it. Screw it. Vessel's done. Now we have to make the lid for it. So we're going to make a slight change here. We'll get rid of this little fixture that I prepared. We'll need it again. But this is going to be our lid. Don't need much of it. So we know it's a 3/8 16. So what we have to do is we're going to actually make it 3/8. So there's the diameter we need. I'm going to make it slightly bigger than that. Here it is. That's the diameter of the threaded shaft we have to create here. We'll take a gouge. Turn this down. Ooh, it's not running true. Well, that's okay. Now I'm going to cut threads, and this is a 16 TPI cutter. This end is used for external threads, the other for internal. Make one other modification before I start. A little chamfer on the corner here helps the tool get started better. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. That's about 600 RPM. On our small mini lathes, you could probably go down to 500. Now that's way too high. That's probably okay. So I'm going to just pick up the speed of this thing and then move this in a circular pattern like that. So we're going to stop and fit a couple of times so I can keep turning this down until it's just right. Ooh, I got it. But the shoulder up at the top has to be cleaned up. It's a little rounded there. And so I'm going to go in with maybe my thinnest parting tool and simply clean up this shoulder here. Literally undercutting that just a bit. Now I could have done the base here, but I didn't. So now that's going to be my lid. So let's decide on how big or round this base of this lid needs to be. And I'm thinking sort of like that. So this part here needs to come down a bit. Okay, it still needs some work on the top, so I'm going to have to find a way to chuck this to do its backside. Well, I got this piece of wood in here, I might as well just use it. So I'm going to put my hole into this. So it's flat so I can drill it. Trying to find the drill bit. Clear the decks. What I'm going to do is drill and tap a hole in this. Went all the way through, might as well. And we'll go back to our tap and my tap follower. Power off. In the hole. Square it up. There went my sharpening card. Okay, we've tapped all the way through. Not tapping it against the metal though. Now, all this is for me to screw the lid on here and finish it. But we're going to take a small break, and the reason we're taking a break is so I can pick it up off the floor where it is dropped, and it's going to take me a minute to find it. It's pretty small. Found it. It's in the sawdust. So now what we're going to do is screw that into here. Just enough that I can finish off the top edge of that. So we'll get some of our sandpaper here. And that's not on very straight, but it's kind of okay. In fact, it might make it actually easier to sand the little bump off the top. Over 400. And the top has been cleaned. Now you see I'm moving it a lot when I go across that center. And then I go with my steel wool. And lastly, we'll do just a little bit of that polish. Got much on there. There we go. Shine that up a little bit. Clean piece of paper towel. And project for the day completed. So this is a combination using small tools, using extra hard woods. Again, it was end grain because that's the way I want to cut the threads, across end grain rather than side grain. And I had to modify a few of my small tools to make them even smaller so they fit where I needed to go. So as you begin to work on small things, you may find modifications of tools and changes of things that needs to be done. So what we're going to do next week, stay tuned. We want your comments. We want your subscriptions. Please sign up, give us your feedback. How are we doing? What would you like us to do next? So see you in the next video.